Waiting. Oh.
Hello, and welcome to AU4H Live. This is AU4H Radio. My name is Laurie Smith. I'm the volunteer radio program coordinator. I'm here with my sister advocates, Lee Roberts and Donna Kshir, and we're glad to be here. This is Advocates United for Humanity, and we decided just to start doing these shows on YouTube, and we just want you to join us, grab a cuppa, whatever you're drinking, and pull up a chair, get comfortable. We're all best friends, and we've been working together, advocates, for a long time on many different projects, and we like to bring awareness and to share important information. It's actually really important that most of society doesn't think about all that often. We're just willing to tackle this stuff because we care about people, we care about children, and so these are difficult topics. Tonight's show is going to be January Human Trafficking Awareness Month, because January was slated to be a month that would bring awareness to human trafficking. And to be honest with you, I never knew much about all the different aspects of human trafficking, and I just knew about like sex trafficking, child sex trafficking, this kind of stuff. But I didn't realize there was a whole lot more to it than that. And then looking around the world, you start to see like there's so many people trafficked in so many different ways. It's unbelievable. So that's kind of what we're going to touch on here tonight. And I'm just glad to be here. Hello, Sissy Donna. How you doing? Hey, Lee. I'm glad to be here. So this is what we're going to be talking about. We hope that you'll join us, pull up a chair, and join the conversation. I'll be checking the comments in the YouTube chat live, and and I'll be checking those. If you have a question for us or a comment or whatever, you can leave that there, and we'll get back to you. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit. I'm going to talk first, and I'm just talking. It's a website called hopeforjustice.org, and they have. It's a great website. Lots of information. What is human trafficking? Like most people, if you haven't done the studies on it, don't even know what human trafficking is.
No.
And I mean, people, it's unbelievable the numbers, the amount of people every year around the world that are trafficked. I mean, it's happening in North America too, but it's also happening all around the world. And so it's unbelievable. And we sit back in our lives, we don't hear much about it. It's, we don't think about it, right? So that's why we're bringing we want to join in and bring awareness to this. We also have sort of over the years been involved with the Gwendine Grant and her daughter Jessie Foster, missing Jessie Foster, and Donna's going to talk about that later, and Lee's going to talk about some stats and stuff as well. So first of all, before we get started in this, I myself was often by myself wherever I was with my family, and my mom and my sister had taken me and my nephews to Las Vegas. It was like a weekend trip. My mom and my sister wanted to gamble, so they just left me and my nephews, we were about 9, 10 years old, to run around on the strip by ourselves. And so my nephews ditched me because they wanted to pick up girls, I guess, try to get girlfriends or something. I don't know what they were doing. They ditched me. So I was by myself walking around in downtown Las Vegas on the strip. And I was in a McDonald's, in a public restaurant, in line to order in the queue. I'm going to order my food. I was going to have a little hamburger because my mom had given me like, I don't know, $2-3 for the day for food, right? We were told to go away for the day. So I'm sitting there in line, and this guy propositions me. He thinks I'm a child hooker, like I'm a child sex worker. And he's like touching me. He's got his hands on me, and he's like, "Oh," I was like creeping out, and I'm like, and the guy in front of me was just like, "Get your hands off her, man." Yeah. So he didn't try anything, but the thing is I left that McDonald's, and I was aware of children around the streets, runaways. I knew about all this when I was growing up, and as I was walking on the street there on the strip, I could pick out and pinpoint the child hookers that were on that street because children don't hang around on the strip in Las Vegas. You know what I mean? It's a horrific situation. It just children are kidnapped and taken into that. So I'm just briefly mentioning that. I mean, it is a scary business. Children's
Very
lives,
scary.
children are dying. You know what I mean? And adults are dying. So we'll get right into this. I mean, this is so important for people to realize. You know, you have to protect your children. You just can't let. This is a dangerous world, man. You just can't let your kids just wander around willy nilly off by themselves. You can't. It's not safe. So general indicators like what is human trafficking, and they go on to explain, it's a lot of different things. It's sexual exploitation, forced labor, child abuse, criminal activities, domestic servitude. This is a lot of information, but we're just going to kind of touch on it here. I'm reading from hopeforjustice.org, right from their main page. Spot the Signs, and that's what this is called. They said general indicators: trafficking victims are often lured into another country by false promises, and so may not easily trust others. They may be fearful of police or authorities. They may be fearful of the trafficker, believing their lives or family members' lives are at risk if they escape. They may exhibit signs of physical, psychological trauma, anxiety, lack of memory of recent events. They may be like bruised and need medical attention. They may be fearful of telling others about their situation. Um, they have limited freedom of movement. They may be paid very little or just not paid at all. They have limited access to medical care. Some seem to be in debt. They may have no passport or mention that someone else is holding their passport. They may be moved regularly to avoid detection. They may be controlled by using witchcraft. Believe that or not. That's on this website. It's true. It's absolutely horrific. Sexual exploitation. They said, be aware, ordinary residential housing hotels are being used more and more for brothels. People forced into sexual exploitation may be moved between brothels, sometimes from city to city. They may be sleeping on the work premises, so they're like living there. Display a limited amount of clothing or a large proportion of sexual type clothing. Display substance misuse. They may be forced, intimidated, or coerced into providing sexual services. They may be subjected to abduction, assault, or rape. They may be unable to travel freely. They might be picked up and dropped off at a certain location by other people. They never have their own vehicle. They may have money for their services provided, collected by another person, so they never handle the money. This is the sexual exploitation part of that, and a lot of adults are involved in that, and it's unfortunate. We're going to talk about that with Jesse Foster. Forced labor, this is where all the work is done under the menace of a penalty, or the person has not offered himself voluntarily and is now unable to leave. So this is forced labor. They may experience threat of or actual physical harm if they try to leave, right? Restriction of movement or confinement, and they may not be paid. They might not be paid or paid very little. Their documents like passport, security, social cards, social security, stuff like that, could be held by somebody else so that they can't leave, right? Threat of revealing to authorities an irregular immigration status, right? Their employers unable to produce documents required. All sorts of this stuff's going on all over the world. Poor or non-existent health and safety standards, requirement to pay for tools and food, imposed place of accommodation, and then they're deducted for that accommodation, so they take that out of their money that they might, their very little money that they might make. Pay that's less than minimum wage, dependence on employer for services, and no access to labor contract, and excessive work hours and pay breaks. Now we know this is going on all around the world. Forced labor, I would say, it's not so common in like the USA and Canada, like North America, but even down in Mexico. I mean, that's part of North America, and they definitely have their issues down there. Central America, South America. So it's even in our own continent that this stuff is going on. But we know it's going on all around the world. in every country has its share of this sort of thing. It's a disgrace that we've come, that we're living in this age, 2021 now, and this is still going on. This is the oldest, this has been going on forever. People have been trafficking humans and forcing humans into slavery. Now, this is modern slavery, and we still have slavery. Can you believe this? I mean, it's unbelievable. So, we just shake our heads. Anybody who's looking into this going, well, how do you stop this mess? This is the issue. That's why I'm glad that there's people actually working on stopping this. It's like child abuse, we're working on that all the time, child abuse prevention. Child abuse is another issue, an abuse of a child's vulnerability by a person's position of power or trust, exploiting that position to obtain sexual services in exchange for some form of favor, such as alcohol, drugs, attention, or gifts. And they said, you may notice that a child is often going missing or truanting. They might be secretive. They might have unexplained money or gifts. These are children that are being trafficked, right? They might be experimenting with drugs and alcohol, associating with and being groomed by older people, not in the normal networks. Now, this is a real problem. That's why we work on child abuse prevention heavy, because there are people out there just waiting to get a hold of a child, and they're looking for the vulnerable who they can get a hold of. And that's why you need to protect your children. If you're watching this, you really do. If you have children or you have grandchildren, you can't do enough to protect them. You really can't. Maybe in relationships with significantly older people, they may be taking part in social activities with no plausible explanation, seen entering or leaving vehicles with unknown adults. They may show evidence of physical sexual assault, including STDs and sexually transmitted diseases, showing signs of low self-image and self-harm, eating disorder. So these are stuff to look out for children that are in sex trafficking. Unbelievable, Criminal activities is another one. The person is recruited and forced, deceived into conducting some form of criminal activity, such as pickpocketing, begging, cannabis cultivation, and counterfeit fraud. So the same indicators as for forced labor, but for cannabis cultivation, you may also notice that windows of property are permanently covered from the inside. Visits to the property are at unusual times. Property may be residential. Unusual noises coming from the property for for instance, machinery, and pungent smells coming from the property. That's if someone's illegally growing marijuana or cannabis. So domestic servitude. They said here, it's a particularly serious form of denial of freedom. This includes the obligation to provide certain services and the obligation to live in another person's property without the possibility of changing those circumstances. Modern day slavery, man. They've been living and working for a family in a private home, not eating with the rest of the family, having no bedroom or proper play, no private space, being forced to work excessive hours, like on call 24 hours a day. They never leave the house without the employer. They may be malnourished, and they may be reported as missing or accused of a crime by their employer if they try to escape. Unbelievable. So their website gives out the information, what to do in the United States or in the UK. If you suspect that someone is being trafficked in any way, you can phone those numbers. It's absolutely important, because it's unbelievable that this is still going on today. And we know that the world has a huge problem with the child sex trade, but even the adult sex trafficking, it's unbelievably discouraging to see that the numbers, they are managing to bust some of these rings, these trafficking rings, taking out thousands of people with them when they do. But they said for every one that they take down, 1,000 more pop up, 1,000 more people. So they can't quite, there's always so much they can do. But they said, what is the simplest way to explain human trafficking? The commonly accepted international definition of human trafficking comes from the UN Protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children, which is one of three protocols known collectively as the Palermo Protocols. And the best way to understand human trafficking is to split it into its three elements. Each element must be present to establish a case of trafficking. Ask yourself, has there been the act? What is that? Recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons? The means, how it is done: threat or use of force, coercion, abduction, fraud, deception, abuse of power or position of vulnerability, giving or receiving of payment benefits. And the person, why is it done? Prostitution, sexual exploitation, forced labor or services, slavery, servitude, removal of organs. I mean, there's even organ, uh, they're even taking people's organs, harvesting organs. Like, this is unbelievable, but this is happening. And this is, I mean, it's just nuts. So if you want more info, go to hopeforjustice.org and check that out. That's a great website. Oh, right.
Laurie, the first thing I think of when I think about human trafficking is the missing Jessie Foster. She's been missing since March 29th of 2006. Jessie was a beautiful, smart, talented girl. She had the rest of her life ahead of her. And her going missing was just absolutely heartbreaking. I volunteered with Glendine for another organization many years ago. We both worked on a blog talk radio show. And, my heart went out to her, but she was so determined, even with all the, the negative and the not knowing. She is just so focused and so driven. I totally respect her. I respect her desire to bring Jessie home. So I often think if that was me and my child went missing or was in that circumstances, how strong I would be. And I don't think I would be that strong.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people, they either thrive or, they take the down road. And I'm just not so sure how I would be. I would be willing to get my child back at any cost, as she is. But I mean, the way she does it, she's just so strong and she has this will to make a difference. And I have nothing but respect for Glendine. But after Jessie went missing, Glendine formed MATH, it's Mothers Against Trafficking Humans. And that was in April of 2010. And she created that organization in effort to create public awareness for human trafficking. And as you said, there's a lot of people that really don't know what human trafficking is.
Mm-hmm.
So, but after Jessie went missing, things really started to come together for Glendine. When Jessie was 17, she befriended a man from Calgary, and they stayed friends even after she graduated high school, got a job, got her own apartment. And from a distance, Glendine didn't think something was right. She kind of thought she was being groomed, but she couldn't be sure. Human trafficking is really new to a lot of us. It's not my specialty, so to speak. I know more about child abuse, awareness, education, stats. That's kind of my main focus.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand how she too didn't, really know a lot about human trafficking. But it was later noted that the friend was a recruiter. He was a known pimp. And that man and another friend asked Jessie to go on vacation with them. And they took Jessie to Florida, Manhattan, Atlantic City. And instead of bringing her home, they were talking about going to Vegas. It was suggested on this trip that Jessie prostitute herself out because they were running low on funding and money. And they had this about getting her back home. And she kind of called Glendine that night in panic. She was very upset, thinking that her friends wanted to prostitute her out. As she continued to talk with Glendine, she just thought, oh, they're just being a jerk. And she went back to the room. So Glendine, she was still very, worried, as any mother would be. I'd be in a panic. But Jessie called. I mean, I'd be so crazy with worry that I don't think I could contain myself.
No.
But Jessie actually called Glendine the next morning and she let her know that they were going to Vegas, but she never mentioned anything from the night before. And again, Glendine found that to be really odd because Jessie's call in the middle of the night, had her so upset and worried.
Yeah, it's a little odd, right?
Very, very odd. But Jessie was only supposed to stay in Vegas for 2 weeks until her 21st birthday. But in a short amount of time, she met a man named Peter Todd. They fell in love. They moved in together. They got engaged. And like I said, everything just happened so quickly once Jesse got to Vegas. After Jesse went missing, Glendine hired a private investigator. And, the private investigator, he was like very clear that within 10 months' time, Jesse went missing after arriving in Vegas. And so you have to stop and think, everything moved really quickly from the moment she got there until she went missing.
10 months, like not even a year.
Yeah. That private investigator, he worked for months. He gathered information, and he found it out that Jessie was hospitalized. She had a broken jaw. She was working for an escort agency, and she was arrested twice, once in June of 2005 and once in September 2005 for solicitation. And her boyfriend / pimp, Peter Todd, he worked with a bails bond company, and that bails bond company that he worked with was the one that bailed Jessie out, but not only Jessie, other women that work for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Glendine believes that Jessie was forced into human trafficking. And, I didn't realize the statistics, so I kind of read the did you knows. Human trafficking has a global estimated market of $42.5 billion a year, according to a report from the Council of Europe. That's unbelievable.
A year.
And the United Nations estimates 2.5 million people from 127 countries are trafficked annually. Those numbers are just unreal. You have to think of the amount of people that is affected by human trafficking.
Every year.
Every year.
That's insane. So in 2 years, that's 5 million. It adds up really quickly. You know what I mean?
But
I just shake my head. I
guess I'm just amazed for the fact that she went to Vegas and just within a matter of a few months, I mean, everything just moved so quickly. She moved there, and then she was, working in prostitution. She was working for an escort agency, and she went missing. But there was different details that I kind of read because I did a little bit more research. Glendine and I have been friends for a lot of years, and I knew the case, but I kind of wanted to brush up on it. Mm-hmm. But things that I found really odd, being a woman, is it said when her boyfriend, Jessie had an appointment, and when her boyfriend arrived home before she did, everything in the house was gone, except for her makeup and her hair dryer. Being a woman, I'm not leaving home without my hair dryer, my brush, or my makeup. And they found that kind of odd because, normally it would have been some of the first things that one would take. So, there was some other things that didn't add up with this Peter Todd. I have a lot I want to say, but due to the fact that I have to be careful what I say, so I'll refrain. And I have supported Glendine's organization Math ever since it has come out. I think all parents need to be educated on human trafficking. As no one's immune to it, Laurie, it can happen to anyone, anytime, anywhere, any place.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And we need to educate our children and let them know that this is a real crime and it's a real danger so that they can have a defense against it. And, I just, like I said, my heart goes out to Glendine because I couldn't imagine myself being in that position. But, like I said, she's doing everything within her power to bring Jessie home, and my thoughts and prayers are with her. And I hope that Jessie is brought home safe. But I just wanted to remind you that, because I know you're familiar with the case as well. In just a few weeks, Jessie will be missing for 15 years. And it's unreal, because I can remember the first time I heard that, that she was missing. But like Glendine, I have hope that she will be found alive and she will be brought home.
Yeah. Yep. And, we'll share the website link and whatnot, because there's a new sketch of Jessie, what Jessie Foster would look like today at the age that she is now. And it's helpful to see what she would look like now instead of what she looked like, so many years ago, right?
Yeah.
So we'll post the links and whatnot in the description below once the show is done. And you click on that and you can take a look, because there are so many of those women who end up being trafficked in the sex trafficking industry, and they're moved from city to city.
Yeah.
A lot of times. And so they might have moved her out of Vegas. See, they might have moved her somewhere else.
I have read a report that I found today online, and it said that they did track her throughout the United States to a few places, but then she was overseas, and they haven't heard anything since she's been overseas. But like I said, that was a report that I read online, and how factual it is, I really don't know. I get most of everything I get from Glendine. I go directly to the website, or I ask her personally. So when we have different reports come up, I don't always believe everything they say. I always do my research. This is just like an emotional topic for me, because I think the world of Glendine, and I really want to see this young girl be brought home. It's sad. I mean, it's just so sad when you think about it, because like I said, she was so young and she had the rest of her life ahead of her. And, to be taken and forced into that world, I can't imagine. I don't think most of us can imagine, though.
No, it's just horrific. Absolutely horrific. And I know when I first saw that case, when I first became aware of the missing Jessie Foster case, I actually because I live in Calgary. She was in Calgary.
Yeah.
Living here for a while. And I actually still look for her, to be honest with you. I still keep my eyes open for her, because she could be here,
Yes. As much as we've traveled over the years and gone to different cities and stuff, it's like you always have an eye out. You're always looking. As I said last week, we are constantly updating people about the missing children, missing people, endangered people. I mean, that is something that, the minute they come in, they are initially out. And like I said, we have a few followers. They get kind of upset because, we're sending out 10 or 15 tweets or posts a day about missing. But if that was your child or your loved one, you would want that person brought home too. So, we're very compassionate about, people's feelings and their love for their family. Like I said, if that was my family, I really don't know how I would react. So I just think that it's best that we put the information out. And as many times as we've put the information out, we've seen a lot of people and a lot of children come home. So it's well worth it.
Absolutely. And when you think about it, I mean, that's what Advocates United for Humanity does.
Yes, because any one of those kids that go missing, they could be forced into sex trafficking or anything. I mean, we really don't know. So I think it's best that we share as often as we can.
Yeah, that's right. And since you mentioned that, Donna, I forgot to mention earlier, I was in New Mexico, children were disappearing into thin air. This is when I was young, when I was growing up. Same age as I was when I was growing up, so in the late 60s, early 70s. And this case, these missing children cases went on and on and on. And it was in the news because families were missing these children, Their child had been out riding a bike, didn't come home. Their daughter, their son, their daughter, all sorts of children were disappearing all over New Mexico. So they started to actually obviously they started an investigation in on it, but they actually then started a real, what do you want to call that, where ICE and all, where they actually got their own agency to try to find out what was going on. They knew it involved a green van. All the cases that any information came in about a vehicle in the area where the child was at the time that the child went missing, it always involved this green van. And the van had no windows, So it was an older, beat up kind of a van. And they were basically telling people, if you see this green van, if you're a child especially, run, because they're out there picking up children. Because what they would do is they would use these children sexually abuse them, and for who knows how long, and then they would dump their bodies in the desert.
So sad.
So the children weren't missing for very long, maybe a year or two. They just used them sexually until they died, and then they just dump them. And so this is hard. This is kind of, I've always, even as a child, I've aware of this sort of stuff growing up as a teen, aware of this sort of stuff. Into my, all of my life, this has bothered me.
Yeah.
It really has. And I really wish that I had, done something like gotten involved in criminal justice and in the justice system and in the police department and whatnot. And actually, I wanted to be a police officer actually for a long time, but I just, it just didn't happen. But I want to bring these criminals down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially regarding children, because children, it's just, they are so vulnerable, and you as a parent, if you're watching this show, if you're listening to us talking about this stuff, I'm telling you, you cannot protect your child enough.
No.
Not even people in your own family, believe that or not. 95% of abuse happens in the home with somebody the child knows. So let's remember that. But we're also talking stranger danger. You just can't let your kids play anymore out in the backyard without supervision, because somebody could come by and take them. And the worst, most horrific acts being done to these children. Because I was abused as a child, I can easily put myself in their shoes of what's happening to them, being raped and tortured, and so yeah, I can understand what these children are going through. You know what I mean? Absolutely unacceptable. So this is why it's so important for people to realize that it's not just adults being trafficked; it is children as well. And you need to, if you're listening to this and you're a parent or a grandparent, you need to protect your children. You really do. Just her, I feel so bad. I mean, Jessie Foster, I just pray that that one day she'll be found, and that she'll be alive and she'll be well. That's my prayer.
Yeah.
And I really do, because for Gwendine's sake, because she's fought long and hard to create awareness. She actually got the law changed up here in Canada. Was that Bill C-36 or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, making it illegal, up here in Canada. So, that's great. It's awesome. But still, a lot more work needs to be done. But we just need to be aware. And like I said, we'll share that link with Jessie Foster's picture, her updated a drawing of what she looks like now, so that you, if you're watching this show, can take a look at it, and then you can keep your eyes open. You just never know, right?
Yeah. You never know who you're going to see. I know we had talked a couple weeks ago about the missing child in Pennsylvania, and we just continuously shared and shared and shared. And we had one volunteer. She was so persistent. She just kept calling and calling and calling. And I think they actually got tired of her calling. And finally, we got notice, because they will update you if the child is brought home, and they let us know that the child was brought home safe. And I was so happy for this volunteer, because I mean, she had shared and shared. I mean, she was sharing around the clock, and I'm like, girl, when do you sleep? Because she was just so, like, we got to bring this child home. We got to bring this child home. This is one of our own. And I'm like, that's how I feel about every child. Every child should be brought home. Everyone deserves to be home. And you cannot be too cautious with your children. I mean, Laurie, let's be honest. We know people that trust their kids with anyone, that they won't loan their car to them. I mean, that's true. And I've been saying that for years. Like, people trust people with their children that they won't loan their car to, or that they won't loan $5 to, because they don't trust them to give it back, but yet they trust their kids with them. And we live in a world you can't do that. This, as we said earlier today, this world is so full of evil that it's unreal. People, there's no humanity, there's no love. It's evil. And you have to watch out for these kids. And that's why I think that the Community Kids Watch program is so important. Yours, mine, and ours. We watch out for all the children.
That's right.
I say it 100 times, but it takes a village to raise a child. And it also takes a village to protect them. And
That's
I think
right.
the Community Kids Watch program is amazing. And like I said, since we started, we've had a lot of great response from people. We have a lot of people coming aboard. I'm actually shocked how well it's going so quick, because
That's
usually
awesome.
it takes a while for people to really get into a program. But it's taken off, and I'm really pleased.
It's good. That's great. I'm glad to
It
hear it.
is. I know.
Yeah.
The more emails we get, and it's like, wow, like people are really, they're starting to understand this whole thing, yours, mine, and ours. And we have said that for years. It's not just your kid or my kid or their kid, it's ours. And I think it's funny because now people's like, it's funny though, because people will say, I've seen this person do this and I've seen this person do that. And it's like, yes, we get a lot of reports. We get a lot of things that people saying what they see their neighbors do. But at the end of the day, we know they're watching these kids. They are actually looking out for these kids. And even though we get the ones where, well, I heard him say this, or I heard him say that, or he sounded like he was being mean to that child, I would rather have 1,000 of those reports than I would to lose one child.
That's right. Because the issue is, on the flip side of that, people say, well, maybe it's not my business, and then you get everybody saying that. And then we have the issue, as it was before, where children actually had no rights, and, abuse was just rampant, right?
Yeah.
Now there's people waking up and, realizing, well, with all the awareness out here, I mean,
Yes.
long before us people were talking, but we're still talking.
We're going to keep talking.
Yeah, we're going to keep talking. That's right. It has created a lot of awareness. I hear from a lot of people myself on my own website and stuff because of what I do with my own stuff. Basically adult survivor type stuff that I'm doing. But, I hear people saying, that there's a lot more awareness out there now. People are paying attention. And people do want to get involved, and they do want to, a lot more people are willing to speak out. And this is what's really important. That's why, we've always said, use your voice, because all of our voices count. All of our voices matter. The minute we shut up and go away, or we're silenced, who's going to bring awareness? You know what I mean? Who's going to be doing anything about this, right? So I just think it's important for everybody to get involved.
I think some people are afraid to get involved because, like, if they call in a report and it's found that there is nothing happening to this child, I think a lot of people fear, repercussion. They're going to get in trouble. But if you make a call in good faith, they don't do anything. They just know that you're genuinely looking out for a child. And
that's right.
Like I said, I would call 100 times, 1,000 times. But it is funny, some of the reports that the girls are telling Lee and myself, that's coming through. But at the end of the day, I'm glad that the program is working. People are talking. People are watching for kids. And like I said, some of the things that they call in is kind of like, you kind of have to laugh because it's like, I've told my own kid no, like telling your kid no isn't a bad thing. But, they're starting to really go with the program. They're finally starting to see and hear and pay attention. And that's what we ask. They pay attention.
That's right. Because it's so important. Like, we were saying, a couple of shows back, your voice, like our voice, if you don't make that call, let's say you suspect a child's being abused, or let's say I suspect a child's being abused, and I don't make that call, I may have been the last person to see that child, or to know that, to hear that the noise, or to suspect that the child's being abused, or maybe the last person before that child's killed. I could have made a phone call, could have saved his or her life. This is why it's so important. You never know when you're going to be the last person to see that child alive. So we have to do the right thing, right? Which is,
we do. We really do.
Made it, like Donna was saying, call made in good faith. They're happy to see that the public's actually caring about children. No harm done, because you could do that anonymously. You don't even have to give your name.
like I said, we have been getting a lot of reports on our text service, our phone service, and also in email. And it's just funny, because it's like, wow, this is what we really wanted. We wanted people to pay attention. Some people were paying a little too much attention because you're allowed to tell your child no. but, but they're actually, yeah, but they're actually, they're paying attention and they're actually doing what we asked of them. And it's fabulous. It is fabulous. We're off to a great start, and I only hope that it grows.
That's awesome.
I'm so excited. Most people get excited over things. I get excited over a program working.
Yeah, well, it's awesome. I think it's great. I think it's great too. It's going to be great to see this take off, especially like as the year progresses. It's exciting, and I'm glad to be part of it too. Absolutely.
Yeah, we have the best, like I said last week, we have the best volunteers that anyone could ask for. Everyone is so dedicated about making a difference. And I love our volunteers. Every one of them, they just seem like they take charge, and they're very dedicated to helping kids. Everyone genuinely wants to help and protect kids, and that means a lot.
Mm-hmm. It certainly does.
You don't find a lot of people
for a long time.
Yeah, you don't find a lot of people that, like want to help. Most people don't want to get involved because, they don't want to overstep the line or they don't want to get in trouble. But the volunteers we have, they are voices, great voices.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of stigma around it too, because child abuse has always had such a stigma attached to it. The victims, nobody wants to hear from the victims. It's like, okay, take your little wah-wah, crybaby self, go somewhere else, go see a psychotherapist. We don't want to know about it. And, without awareness, nothing's going to change. And that's what Advocates United for Humanity is all about, positive social change. We need to talk about this. This is the talk. This is it. We're talking. This is the discussion. Let's talk. We need to talk. And more people need this discussion. You know what I mean? Like people around the world need to be having these discussions because it's so important. Lives are hanging in the balance as we speak.
Laurie, as I've said for years, I'm going to keep talking until I can't talk anymore.
That's what I say too.
I'm going to be a voice. And like I said, my kids always laugh because they're like, that'll be a long time you'll be talking. It's like, yep. I says, well, they need more people to talk. But like I said, we do have some great volunteers, and they are great voices. I couldn't ask for a better group of volunteers. We are blessed.
That's awesome. Absolutely. And I agree, because I know most of them. So they're awesome. Right? So, and they've been around for a long time doing great work.
I was going to say, most of them I have known for a very long time. And then with the new chapters coming up, and like I said, Warren is just, I always say he's a rock star, and like he gets this little chuckle, but he is. I mean, and we have more chapters in the works, and I'm really excited to bring them forward to the public. And like I said, we are building, and last year we got cut down because of COVID, and we had to back up on all of our programming and everything. But 2021, we're coming for you.
That's right. Look out, 2021. Here we come. That's right. That's good. That's what needs to happen. Right on.
I think Lee's going to talk a little bit about statistics.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, sorry. 25 million people were trafficked worldwide. That's quite a large number. That's not just sex trafficking, but that's all across the board. And when you think of trafficking, you think of human trafficking, somebody's first thought is, from overseas, but it happens here in our backyard. It really does. Now that statistic, that 25 million people, that's from Polaris. And in 2018, just two years ago, they worked on nearly 11,000 cases of human trafficking that were reported to them. Those cases involved more than 23,000 individual survivors, more than 23,000 survivors of trafficking, and over 5,800 potential traffickers, with over 1,900 potential businesses or trafficking businesses. The numbers are grossly underreported.
Yes.
I mean, they're because a lot of people don't know what to look for as well, and some people just don't want to get, nope, not my problem, not getting involved. And, we as a people have got to stop doing that. Get involved, say something, speak up, make a call. And you can even make contact online, make a report that way. You can be anonymous. This is just, it's notoriously underreported, the numbers are. And, that should give you pause. That should make you stop and think. There is, I've got to share a story here in just a minute, but, I want to share this with you. There was a story that I recently came across here, and I'm going to go to the cheat sheet here. This child's mom was a drug addict who was prostituting herself, and she took her child with her as well. And I'm like, wow. So there was a time when this young girl was about 11 years old, and her drug dealer offered the child's mom $10 for her. So mom took the $10 and, let the drug dealer do whatever they wanted to with her child. I can't fathom that.
Yeah.
It's really hard to wrap my head around that, Child sold for sex by her mother. That is human trafficking. It's in your backyard. It is in small town USA. And I live in Northwest Florida. I live about 3.5 miles, maybe just over 3.5 miles from what's called the I-10 corridor. And I-10 runs east to west, and it runs, that's one of the biggest areas that the trafficking happens. You get all the rest stops. You've got all those rest stops, and you can only imagine what happens there. Excuse me. And according to a study done by the U.S. Department of Justice, Human Trafficking Task Force cases, 83% of those cases of trafficking, the victims were identified as being U.S. citizens. It's not just overseas. It is here.
Yeah. It's absolutely crazy.
The average age was really, this should have some people sitting on the edge of their seat and going, wow, and want to get involved. The average age for a traffic victim first being used for commercial sex is between 12 and 14 years old. And there have been kids as young as 9 years old, 8 and 9 years old.
Wow.
I just 6, 7, 8, 9. That's what, third and fourth grade. To put it in some perspective, and there are a lot of agencies out there, both law enforcement and otherwise, who are getting involved in providing aftercare for human trafficking victims. And they said the life expectancy for a child taken into human trafficking is about 7 years. And they can be forced into having sex with hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people. It's just, it just really, really blows my mind. It does. It's crazy.
It's horrific.
There's something here. Last year? Where was it? Sorry, I have to find this. More than a fifth of human trafficking victims here in Florida are children. And the majority of those victims are female. And it's, there are organizations here. There's one particular called To Rescue, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to supporting law enforcement and families who have loved ones, with loved ones who have been abducted, trafficked, or exploited. They educate, equip, and work to mobilize people to help respond to the missing and the fight against human trafficking. And the head of Call to Rescue is a man named Brad Dennis, and he's part of, he's the director for Missing for the Klaus Kids. Klaus Kids.
Oh,
Well,
hopefully we'll get Lee back. I was just getting into what she was talking about there. I'm like, oh, hopefully she'll come back and join us. Yeah.
that happens sometimes.
Yeah, it does happen every now and then. And I checked my microphone level tonight, and it was showing that it was good. So this better be good.
Check mine.
Yeah, we need to have somebody watch live, so catch us live so they can let us know if they can hear us or not. But these are, it's horrific. And when you think about it, I think that's why people don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
Because most people don't, going through their daily life, they're doing their thing. If they don't know somebody who's been victimized, or maybe they do know somebody, but they've never, they didn't know, sort of thing, because they never told them. But, most people find this stuff so uncomfortable. It's kind of like even hearing about it or thinking about it causes them to, whatever it causes, maybe anxiety. I don't know. People just have a lot of difficulty with this stuff. And I mean, it should shock us. It should cause that. We shouldn't be okay listening to this. This is not okay. I mean, it's horrific.
I just did an open letter the other day, and people were saying they don't want to hear about child abuse. And it's like, I cannot believe people don't want to hear it. But, child abuse is ugly, and really no one really wants to read about it or see it or hear it. I even myself, I don't. It breaks my heart to see what these kids go through. But if people don't talk about it, then nothing's ever going to happen. We're never going to make a difference. And I don't think a lot of people see that. I think a lot of people are more thinking, oh, they're worried about hurting their feelings, or, it's it's like an ugly situation, and it's like, it's ugly, but look what these children are going through. Or just like girls like Jessie, we really have no idea, what Jessie is, what she's going through, where she is, what's happening to her on a daily basis. And not knowing, I'm a person that not knowing what's going on would kill me. It would be a torture every day, because I'd constantly be thinking, what's happening to my child? And like I said, Glendine, I have so much respect for her, and I have prayed and prayed that that Jessie is brought home safe. It's just, like I said, she's doing everything in her power to bring her home, and I have nothing but respect for her.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's tough.
I guess with Jessie's case, what's kind of really hard to believe is in 10 months' time, her life changed dramatically. She went from being a happy, free-spirited person, living life to the fullest, to, like I said, she fell in love, she moved into an apartment, she got engaged. But then, I mean, I can't even imagine being forced, to be an escort at an escort agency. I can't even imagine that. And then when she doesn't want to do it, or she says she's not going to do it, to have her jaw broken, to be beat up. I mean, it's literally heartbreaking. And I always take and think, what if that was my child? I would never want to see that happen. So I can, I can see how Glendine feels, because I can put myself in certain situations. But the not knowing would get the best of me. I think that would be the worst. But like I said, she started math, and she's out there, she's fighting for laws and bills, and she's doing everything in her power to bring Jessie home. So
yeah, she's never given up. And this is the thing.
And she never will.
And that's why it's so important, for people to realize, if society closes their ears to this stuff and just decides, okay, well, we don't want to hear about it because it's ugly and it's disturbing, more children are going to die. And you have to think about it, then it could be yours if you're listening to this. It is important. And if it's not happening to your children, thank God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's not happening to somebody else's child that just lives down the street from you, you know? And so it is important to just be aware and, realize this stuff is happening. You never, you never know. You could just happen to see an article one day out there and end up seeing that person somewhere and save their life, right? Because they're out there somewhere. Not all of them have been killed off, and there are some that are still there. You remember that case now? I don't remember their names, but there was several, I think 3 or 4 women. Actually, they were women, but they were girls originally, teenagers who were kidnapped back east, and some of their families kind of didn't even care that they were missing because they were kind of like runaways and stuff, and always running away. Some of the families were fighting to get their children back. These girls. This guy had him in his basement as sex slaves.
Yes, I think that was something we talked about last week.
Yeah, for years. So there's a form of human trafficking. They weren't moved from place to place, but they were virtual. They were actually his sex slaves, and his somebody else's his I don't know if it was his brother or his cousin or somebody else was involved in this too. But they were in this guy's basement for years. Even having one of them had a child with this guy, some of them had beaten up so badly their faces were disfigured. I mean, they escaped one day and got away. Some of them didn't. They got help for the other one that was there. I don't know if they all got out, but anyway, they did get help, and that guy got busted. And I think he killed himself, or one of the two ended up killing themselves after they went to prison. Because they knew what was going to happen to them in prison when they got there.
Oh yeah.
Man, it, right? This is the thing. You can't. They don't. It's not good. Too bad. That's justice served. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is those girls. I never gave up hope on those girls. And remember, we used to share that post because we did this other organization, and we used to share posts all the time for, especially child abuse prevention stuff, and always sharing missing children. And we shared their posts, and I used to pray, and I'd pray to the Lord. I'm like, Lord, they're alive. They're out there somewhere, but I had no idea they were all together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People, right? And then when they found them, I was like, yes, because they were alive. And I was like, they don't know me, those girls. They don't know that there was a whole group of people out here like us that were praying that they would be found and brought to safety. And they were.
Star Myers and myself actually did a radio show one time, and we talked about several of them, being missing. And we kept saying about, watch for them, and we kept sharing their stories. And it was so weird because when they were actually found and brought home, it was like, I can remember working on that case. So
yeah, this is the thing. I mean, it touched a lot of people, a lot of our hearts, because a lot of us were out here sharing those posts and, not giving up on them and praying for them. And some people were even starting had prayer circles going for these women, young girls, I guess, young women. They became young women. They were actually teens when they were kidnapped. It's just amazing that they actually found them alive.
Yeah.
But we have to keep that hope alive for Jessie Foster as well.
Yes.
That she is alive.
I want to remind our listeners to, tonight we just shared briefly Jessie's story. We only have an hour, and for all 3 of us to do our part, we kind of had to go kind of quickly. But I want to remind our listeners to visit Glendine's website. It's MATH. It's Mothers Against Trafficking Humans. And you can read Jessie's full story there. I wish we would have had time to do the full story in depth. But like I said, we only have an hour, and, for the 3 of us to share the stats and everything. And so it kind of was kind of quick, but I encourage everyone to visit the website, and see her real story. Take a view of her updated picture, of what she looks like now. She doesn't, the new image, she doesn't really look much different, but she's more mature. So, and like I said, when you see those posters, some people think, oh, it's a waste of time, but I'm telling you, it's not, because we have seen kids come home. We have seen people come home. We've seen a lot of the elderly come home. So, I mean, it's vital that you look at those posters and you share. Never stop sharing because there's always hope, and that's with Glendine. I have hope that Jessie will come home.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so we'll just keep looking for Jesse. That's right. Keep our eyes open.
Keep praying.
Keep praying and keep sharing that information. That's right. And for all of the missing and all of the people out there that are being trafficked and that are missing. Yeah. So it's really important. But thanks everybody. For everybody who's going to tune into the archive, we appreciate it. You can go to our website. We have all of our links there. You can follow us. We have the AU4H radio page on Facebook now, and you can check out like each show. I'll post the link there. We'll be posting what we'll be talking about, and check out our website, our main website, Advocates United for Humanity. And what's that website, Donna?
www.au4h.weebly.com.
Yeah, so you can go there, and that's where all of our resources are. That's a great website. Lots of resources, tons of information, and it's in the links below too. But be sure and go and check it out and get involved. If you want to be if you want to be ambassador and be a community kids watch ambassador, then you should just get a hold of us.
Yeah.
That's what you should do. So because we want more and more people to get on the wagon here and just join us in this. And we also want you to come back next Wednesday, same time, same place, to watch, to not just to watch, but to be here with us, joining the conversation. You can type your questions or comments in the live chat, and then I'll be watching that, and we can have a discussion. You can contact us and be part of the show, really, and be a part of this. Be a part of this. We want you to join us. So be here next Wednesday, same time, same place, and we'll post the link will be here. If you haven't already, like the video if you like it, and also subscribe to our channel. Smash that like button.
Smash
it. And smash that subscribe button too. We're a new channel on YouTube, so we need people to share this. I want it to go like wildfire all around the world. So signing off tonight, Laurie and Donna, saying good night. We'll see you next week.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Good night.